Well, good evening, and welcome back to the final edition for this week of Visibility Made Easy. So, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for watching the replays if you haven't been able to make it live, for your comments and for sharing the information. And I've decided to do this because if you have never met me before, my name's Jenny Kovacs and I'm known by many as the Queen of Being Seen. I help you to spread your ripples far and wide, to be seen, to be heard, to be noticed, whether you do that in writing, on camera, or even through how you speak and how you communicate. So according to Facebook, this is number 25, and I'm just going to refresh my screen because as usual, you're here, and I'm also looking down here. I have my computer in the background because I never ever want to miss any of your comments, any of your shares or anything else that you share here. So not expecting too many of you because it's Friday night here in the UK. But what I do know is that I have just had my, they say fish on a Friday, don't they? I'm up in Stoke-on-Trent and I don't know how many of you have experienced this from Stoke-on-Trent, but they do a really lovely thing called pudding at the chip shop. And it's just addictive. Pudding, gravy, chips and some mushy peas. So that was my indulgence for Friday night before I go off and relax for the rest of my evening. So what on earth does the acronym mean in the title of this video? It stands for this: what will I do differently next time? Now, before I get into why that's such a great question to ask yourself, I'm just going to share with you why it's such a great practice to get into. So if it's okay with you, let's let people know that we are here and let's get people out there and let's get you joining, because in this short time, if you've got any questions at all, I'd love for you to post them on the at the bottom here in the chat. So if you've never joined one of these before, just so that you know, if you're looking and watching this, I can't see you, and most of the time I can't tell who you are. All I see are numbers at the front. So if you do want to say hello, please do say hi. Please type your name in, say hi, and I will always shout you out. And for those of you that are in business, because I'm the Queen of Being Seen and I'm into visibility, then I will always say hello, acknowledge you, use what you do as examples so that you can get out there in the world and to be seen and to be heard and to be noticed. So let me start with sharing a story. So why would you even want to know what the acronym means, and why would you want to ask yourself? Hey, France Lee, she says, evening Jenny, big waves, blowing big kisses and waving to you. Hi. So why would you even want to use this? Well, many years ago when I trained as a coach, I really got into the concept of being coached and, you know, being mentored and all that kind of stuff as well. But one of the things that I found most useful in my journey, I actually studied NLP from both at an introductory level to master practitioner level. Loved it so much. It made such a big difference in my own life that I went on to master practitioner and then on to train the trainer. So although I'm qualified to do all of that, I don't bring any NLP really into what I learned. But this piece stayed with me. I learned my NLP from the lovely, fantastic John Seymour. So my course wasn't a 5-day, 7-day or 9-day course. We used to learn it academically. So for my practitioner and master practitioner courses, it was over 9 months. You know, we'd come at the weekend, we'd learn, we'd explore, we'd play. Then we'd have a whole month, which really helped my skeptical side. And what I found in the times between those trainings was phenomenal. It was immense. What I started to learn was that you could really apply this stuff to yourself. You know, NLP gets a bad rap for being, you know, all about manipulation and things like that. But the truth of the matter is NLP was actually modelled from people who were brilliant at doing things. People like Virginia Satir, who was a family therapist. You know, you're always told in these kind of counselling circles, therapeutic circles, no physical contact with the client, you know, keep those boundaries. Yet here was a woman who was hugging her patients, and the results she was getting were going like through the roof, off the charts. So the makers and the creators, I should say, of NLP really studied good behaviour, brilliant habits and things that people did well. And all they did was collected those brilliant habits so that people could use them. Since then, it's been used in sports and things like that. Now, the reason I share that story with you is because the why, or what would you do differently next time, I first came across it on my NLP introduction. NLP, if you haven't come across it, neuro-linguistic programming. In a nutshell, neuro is about the brain, linguistics about the language we use with ourselves and when we communicate with other people, and programming is like the order that we do things. And if you think you have no programs, let me ask you this. In the mornings when you wake up, do you shower first and then brush your teeth, or brush your teeth and then shower first? It's likely that you'll do it in exactly the same order every morning. That right there is a program. Another program could be the way in which we have a really strong belief about ourselves as we grow up. And Ian says, hi, hey up Jenny in France Lees, good evening. Good evening to you, Ian. And good evening, France Lees. Now, you might want to share this with your friends and on your timeline, because the what would you do differently next time question came up when I had an introduction. And like most things, to be honest, when I was learning this, I was just like, the language feels weird. I just can't get my head around it, never mind my teeth. But here's what I discovered on the what would you do differently next time piece. We first used it on ourselves because we were looking at things we did well. So for any of you that don't know, when I started my business in 2010, being a keen cake maker and having chefing qualifications, I decided I would train and coach on the one side of the business, make cakes and chocolates on the other side of the business. Just in case the coaching and training went quiet, I had something that I could fall back on, and vice versa. So, and by the way, Ian, Frances is saying hi to you too. So one of the things that we explored was of a memory, and I always used to go for kind of wacky outside the box things where people were saying, I want promotion at work, and, you know, I want to be, you know, faster than my husband or wife when I'm running. I wanted to explore why I was good at certain things and why I wasn't so great at other things. And that's when we were introduced to the what would I do differently next time. But here's where it really like blew things out of the water. And that was when I found myself being invited in those early days, with the training and coaching on one hand, cakes and chocolates on the other, to exhibit a couple of weeks before Christmas at a local fair, which was at the time in Surrey. So a really good friend of mine and phenomenal coach had decided to put on this Christmas fair, and all these different stall holders came along. Well, because of the cakes and chocolates, I kind of fitted into that category. But I also decided to bring along loads of leaflets around kind of personal coaching, personal performance, being at our best. And I had everything mapped out. I made all of my cakes, you know, within 24 hours of actually being at the exhibition. So it meant that I'd been up like literally since, I think it was 3 o'clock that morning baking. I'd been up the evening before baking because I didn't want to sell any stale cakes. In my head, there were people that would come and buy the cakes for Christmas, that, you know, they would put them in their freezers, they would be able to indulge. I'd done things like banoffee cake, so banana and toffee, chocolate fudge cake with like a thick oozing layer of chocolate fudge icing on the top. I'd made all sorts of different things. I think I'd made like apple and cinnamon for people that wanted to be a bit more healthy, good old-fashioned vanilla, you know, like a Victoria sponge, and so on and so forth. And I know that France Lees on here loves baking too. So I'd made all of these cakes and had all these leaflets kind of printed and everything else. And I stood and waited as people came to my stand and bought up loads of cakes and asked me about coaching or training and hired me to go and train their company, and then I would be a gazillionaire. And that didn't happen. In fact, I was very fortunate enough. Ian says I'm making him hungry. I think I'm making myself hungry, given that I've just had chips, mushy peas, gravy and pudding a la Stoke. I shouldn't want any more, but I do. So I decided, as I was kind of like on this stand and deciding how, you know, this is going to be the turning point of everything going forward. And note to self, where in your life, and especially for those of you that are really ambitious and career orientated, where in maybe your business or the company that you're working for, Are you kind of saying to yourself, I'm going to go for it, but I'm going to also wait for my big break? Okay, important to note that and what's around that. And that's something to kind of like unpick on a coaching conversation. So I was stood next to this lady that made, like, she sold wooden toys. She didn't make them, but she sold wooden toys, and they were brilliant. She was a lovely woman called Sue. And we were talking about what I was selling and how I was going to sell it. And guess what happened? The expo was really, really quiet. Every 20 minutes to half an hour, 1 or 2 people would walk past. And because I was selling cakes and chocolates, I thought it'd be a good idea to offer free tasters. But here's what I did. People would come up, taste the chocolates, tell me how delicious they were. Some would buy some chocolates to take away. Some, because they had like loads of bags and they were Christmas shopping, would come back. And after a few hours, Sue said, oh, these people that are coming and tasting the cakes and you've been talking to about training and coaching, are you going to ring them like tomorrow, or, you know, are you going to have time to ring them tonight? And it was a Saturday and it was before Christmas. And I thought, well, I can't ring them because I don't have any contact details for them. Mistake number 1. Anyway, to cut a very long story short, with about 2 hours before this show finished, I was talking to all the stall holders. I was walking around with cakes. I was doing buy one, get one free, buy one, get 3 free. And in short, I ended up going home with quite a few cakes in my car. I remember thinking, that's okay. I'll put it out on Facebook to my local friends. They can come and get them. I had family members that said, yeah, I'll have some cakes, but I still didn't get rid of all of them. And I remember at the time there was a really like fantastic business in the town that I lived. And they used to do, you know, like things for parties. So fancy dress and balloons and, you know, like helium balloons and candles and stuff like that. I even phoned them and said, look, I've got these cakes. Can I bring some in for you to sell between today and tomorrow? I did everything I could to sell these cakes, but ultimately I ran that at a loss. I'd made too many cakes, and to boot, I came back home and I was feeling really, really miserable. Anyone identify with that? You have this like fantastic business idea or fantastic idea at work or even in your personal life. You go out there, you go to do it, and crickets. So I went home and I was just about to bury my head in the pillow and sob and drink a vat of wine to try and, you know, get rid of the fact that I was really, really peeved. And then quite randomly, I remembered the question that John Seymour had taught us. And that question was, what will I do differently next time? So it was kind of like, I don't know if you've had one of those moments where you're like, this is going wrong. It's not how I want it to be. You're really upset. And somewhere, somehow, you find a pause button and you just go, actually, I have a choice. Now, here's the thing with any emotion, whether you perceive it to be negative or positive. If you're sat in your office by yourself and you're absolutely freaking out and fearful of something, in any given moment, you have a choice to stop that fear, believe it or not. It feels like it's all consuming. It feels like it's not your fault. It's the environment outside that's doing it to you. But with every emotion, you have the choice. I mean, let's face it. If you were in the street and something funny happened and you knew you weren't supposed to laugh, like really, really not supposed to laugh, 99% of the time you'd be able to stop yourself and kind of go and then laugh about it afterwards. So here's one thing I want you to know. Whatever emotion you're going through, and this comes up in visibility, especially when we make it so difficult for ourselves, so complicated for ourselves, and sometimes not easy. If you want visibility made easy, know one thing. No matter how you're feeling in any given moment, you always have a choice. Always. You always have a choice as to whether you're going to be fearful about something or not, whether you're going to go out and do something or not, whether you are going to be embarrassed about what you're sharing or not. You even have a choice as to whether you go on the spectrum of being fearful and frightened or loving and joyous every given moment. And for whatever reason, in that moment, I paused and I stopped and I went, before I freak out and drown myself in a vat of wine or something, not a regular habit that I have, you understand, I want to know, like I want to reflect back on what happened today and know what could be different. And because I knew that this was such a powerful question, in that moment I grabbed a notebook. It doesn't matter whether it's a nice notebook, a scrap of paper, the wall, as long as it's your wall. Please get permission before writing on walls of people's houses. And I asked myself the acronym that you see in the title: what would I do differently next time? And breathe, Jennifer. I didn't need to sob into my pillow. I didn't need to drink wine. And with that, I took my notebook out, and rather than just looking at the day, I went to 24 hours before the day. So what would I do differently next time? I would plan not to make so many cakes. I mean, let's face it, with 2 weeks before Christmas, I could have sold certain cakes there and then at the expo. And if people wanted them in a few days' time, rather than saying buy them now and take them for your freezer, I can always, because at the time it was a thriving cake business, I could always make the order up fresh and deliver them. I mean, I had all the ingredients there. So I just wrote that down in one line. No War and Peace, just like a couple of words, a bullet point, so to speak. What else would I do differently? I would not stay up really late and get up so early so that I was so tired. What else would I do differently? I would get someone to help me, especially with the loading of the cakes. I arrived with a car packed full of stuff, and then I had to try to park in front of the place, the hall where the expo was going on, and unload my car and load up my desk, and I wasn't allowed to park in front of there. Yes, I know that these are things that I can't, I couldn't have always foreseen. But when you ask yourself this powerful question, what would I do differently next time? Then you have a different perspective. You realise that you have a choice. You have a choice to be down about it or up about it. But in that moment, I wasn't even making a choice on how I wanted to feel. I was making a choice on what I wanted to do differently. So about 20 minutes later, I had like separate lines of nearly 20 different things, 20 different bullet points of what I would do differently next time. I think I've just seen Alison and Liz join, so if I have, I'm saying hello. And Alison, I'm sending you good vibes because I know that you haven't been feeling 100% lately. Francis has said the exact same thing happened to me in December after crying for 2 hours, and I felt like my actions got me crying. My actions could get me successful. Then my mindset totally shifted. Absolutely. The thing I like about the what would I do differently next time question was that I didn't have to go through the drama of the tears, because here's the thing. Sometimes you just need to get the emotion out of your body however it comes. But one thing that I noticed from asking this question, it wasn't about me stopping the tears. It wasn't about me trying to negate how I was feeling. Hi, Liz. She says, hi, Jenny. Liz, you've got, I think, Alison, France, Lees, and who else? Ian on as well. And whoever else is watching, but I can't see any names. So this was the thing. I had the choice. I didn't have to try and put... I didn't have to try and put any kind of like spin or any change into anything. I was just feeling how I was. But after asking myself the questions and having these 20 lines out, what I'd actually inadvertently created was like my own personal checklist. If I was to do the same thing again, not what could I do better because there's an error of judgment on myself, not what could I do in order to make it more successful, because that's another pressurized thing and it's catapulting you into a future based on something that hasn't worked, but what could I do differently? So when I looked at what I could do differently, I now had this checklist, which actually became a checklist that I use if I'm going to exhibit, or if I'm going to get out there, or if I'm going to do something, which also included a couple of things that I had never thought of before, like asking the event organizer, how many people are you expecting in terms of footfall? What kinds of people do you think will be coming along to this? Who are you going to be advertising it to? And here's where I made such a fundamental error, I can't even believe it. But as this page is about visibility, I'm going to be vulnerable and open and share it with you. It never actually crossed my mind until I asked myself, what would I do differently next time? I told about 6 people I was doing this event. And of those 6 people, they were people that I knew lived nearby and regularly bought cakes from me. Like every family occasion, they'd buy a cake from me. But I never even thought about advertising it to the wider audience that I had. I was a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I was a member of a small business meeting group. You know, I lived on a really friendly street. I saw the neighbours all the time. The local supermarket must have wondered why I bought a gazillion bars of chocolate and, you know, like 60 eggs and then came back for more. And I never thought to share with anyone and say, you know what, this thing's coming up. I'm going to be there, but there's lots of other businesses that are going to be there. There's a woman that sold spices. There was a lady with the wooden toys. You know, there were so many different types of businesses. It never occurred to me to do that. So when you ask yourself that question, what will I do differently next time? What usually happens is the first few things are just things that are kind of like common sense. And the next few things are things that you haven't actually thought of before. So following that question, what would I do differently next time? Go for the things that you've never thought about before. And this is what shows you, you know, when you hear coaches say things like you have everything within you to do what you need. That's what that means. Because somewhere in your psyche, you pull out a depth of wisdom that belongs to you that was already there. It's the best way I know to self-coach. So, have you got anything that you want to share here? And remember that if you share it here, it's a public page. Anyone can come and see it, especially those people that watch on the replay. For those of you, and thank you so much, who have been sharing this video to your timeline or to groups that you're in or anything else like that, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. If you want a slightly more private conversation, why not join the Visibility Vibes Tribe group? I should say that slower, the Visibility Vibes Tribe group. Why not join them? Because in there it's a closed group, which means that your family and friends won't see what you're posting, okay? But the other people in the group will, and as demonstrated even in just the last couple of days, people have been so brilliant, so generous, so supportive. They've been, you know, someone's been asking questions and do you think I should have done this or done that? And the quality of responses that you get from the people within the group is immense. You know, so this is not a go and join the group and I'll tell you what to do. It's an absolute immense experience. So one of the things that I would like strongly advise you to do in any given moment, and that question actually works for anything, is to ask yourself the question, what would I do differently next time? Now, for those of you that say, Jenny, this is basic stuff, you know, I'm good, my mindset's good. Here's like a stretch up for you. Here's like next level for you. If you do something and it works out wonderfully, and here's where I'd love you to go back to at any given point in time, because you are wonderful, you're good enough, you know enough. Think about a time when you did something really wonderful. It could be baked the perfect cake. It could be cooked a beautiful dinner. It could be watched a beautiful sunset. It could be giving cuddles to your cat or your dog. And just think about something that really warms your heart. Then get your pen and paper out and ask yourself the same question. And what would I do differently next time? When you ask yourself, what would I do differently next time? Even in those, you know, those situations where you've absolutely nailed it or really gone for it and had a really great result, you'll find ways that you could like make that experience even better, even more easy, even more simple. So Liz has put a comment on there. It doesn't always come straight off, Jenny. The wisdom is almost always in an afterthought to listening. That's true, but it's very different for very different people. And the reason that I say that is because we all construct the way we see the world in different ways. So for example, there are about 6 or 7 of you watching this at exactly the same time. Even though I'm using the same words, the same language, the same body language, you will all be assimilating it differently, and it will be based on the experiences that you're currently going through now, you know, the environment you're currently in now, the frame of mind you're in now, maybe even what you've experienced in the past. If you've run events before and lost loads of money, they've always gone wrong, every time you think about running an event, your like reference of experience will usually go back to that event. So I think one of the best things that I could have done in that particular environment was just to write down what would I do differently next time. And in some ways, without even meaning to or knowing about it, I negated the fear of looking back to the past. Yeah, France Liz is saying totally agree. I think that's totally agree with what Liz is saying. So Liz said it doesn't always come straight off, Jenny. The wisdom is almost always an afterthought to listening. It's so true. And here's something that is so right in what Liz says. I talked in the beginning about programming, and programming being the automated way that we've constructed to do things. Because we've constructed that, whether, think about it. If you come from a family with brothers and sisters, even though you grew up in the same environment with the same parents or the same people that cared for you, you've all got different traits to your personality. That's because we construct things differently individually. So when you look at something, as Liz says, as an afterthought to listening, sometimes our program is such that we don't even realise that we do that. We've got into such a program, like if you're about to get angry, you've normally had years of practice of getting angry, you just do anger. You don't stop and consciously think, how do I allow myself to get angry? What happens first? Is it a feeling? Is it a thought? Is it an internal voice? Is it something I see? Is it something from an outside influence? Is it a feeling? You don't think of it like that, but there'll be lots of very small steps. It could be it starts off with an internal voice that causes a feeling, that then starts off a thought process, that then makes you, see something. And there is no strict order. Everybody constructs it to them, to themselves and for themselves differently. So how I get angry and how France Liz might get angry or Liz might get angry will actually be very different for us based on the experiences that we've had, the environment we're in, what we've learned, how we construct things. So I really hope that's been helpful for you. If there's something that you do want to share and you don't want to share it in such a public domain, please go over to the Visibility Vibe Tribe group. Just click and I will let you in. And for those of you that know that you need a little bit more in support and you absolutely understand the benefit of a coach, then click on the messaging above on this page. Do get in contact. I'll send you a link to my schedule or my diary, or even go over to my website. Let's book a time to talk. Let's find out how we could do some work together to help with that piece. It's not just about mindset. I always think we need to come from like a mind, heart and hands way. Your mind is very much how you think about things, how you construct things, but it's not always the best way to make a decision. Sometimes it might be, but sometimes not. So then there's the heart, the feeling, like where you come from, who you are, your authentic self. And the hands are the doing. And that's where I can also add benefits of different tools and techniques, not out of a textbook, but something that works for you and your life. But first of all, we need to know how you run your programs and how you need to undo them. So thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. For those of you that have enjoyed this, tell your friends, come back Monday to Friday. So every weekday, 7 p.m. GMT. And in the event that I'm not able to let you, not able to join you live, I'll let you know if it's going to be kind of any other time. But the next Facebook Live I've got is over on the Jenny Kovacs Speaker Trainer Coach page, bright and early, 7 a.m. on Monday morning. I can't even remember the subject we're talking about. I think it's something to do with mindset. I can't remember the specific subject, but I will post it over the weekend. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for liking, commenting and sharing. And according to Facebook, even though I've done over 100 Facebook Lives, this was the 25th one that I've done on this page. So looking forward to bringing you much more juicy content. And if there's anything that you want to know about visibility being made a lot easier, maybe there's something you're struggling with, maybe there's something you're fearful with, maybe being seen, being heard, there's something that's getting in your way, by all means, let me know what you'd like to see. And if that's a stretch too far and you don't want to do it publicly, let's get in contact. Let's spend a day together. I call it a day intensive, where we get together and we go through and put a plan together for how you're going to shine, how you're going to make a difference to people's lives, how you're going to be seen, how you're going to be heard, and how you're going to get visible. Thank you so much for joining me. Lots of love to you. Have a fantastic weekend and bye for now.